In 1981, a bullet narrowly missed the heart of a certain Karol Wojtyła when an aggrieved Turk shot him in the Vatican City. Wojtyła, whose professional title was Pope John Paul II, later forgave his would-be assassin, who managed to penetrate the Bishop of Rome with 2 bullet holes, but failed to kill him. This occurring on the 64th anniversary of the first apparition of the Virgin Mary at Fatima, she was, specifically, later invoked as the Pope's protector that day, him saying that a motherly hand had guided the bullets to miss his vital organs. I'm not the first to wonder why Our Lady of Fatima could not have guided the bullets to miss him altogether. We've seen a similarly religious response from a similarly religious political milieu following the attempt on Donald Trump's life last month. Given how close he came to martyrdom in Pennsylvania, turning his head slightly at the exact moment of impact, which was therefore taken by his earlobe rather than his occipital lobe, it's been suggested by a number of political commentators that God had a hand in saving the former president at the last moment. One wonders why he had to wait until then. Trump himself appears to be similarly convinced that heaven intervened that day. Here he is speaking to Elon Musk recently on X.
It hit me at an angle that was far less destructive than any other angle. So that was the miracle. That was, for those people that don't believe in God, I think we got to all start thinking about that. You have to, I'm a believer. Now I'm more of a believer, I think. And a lot of people have said that to me. A lot of great people have said that to me, actually. But it was amazing that I happened to be turned just at that perfect angle.
And here at his first appearance after the shooting at the Republican National Convention.
And I'll tell you, I stand before you in this arena only by the grace of Almighty God. In watching the reports over the last few days, many people say it was a providential moment. Probably was.
It's unclear what the mechanism of God's grace was that day. Perhaps he suspended his famously stringent policy on interfering with human free will, briefly taking control of Trump's brain to turn his head just far enough to avoid fatality, but not quite far enough, for some reason, to avoid impact. Maybe he was going for show. Or maybe he took a hold of the shooter's hands and nudged them just slightly off target. This doesn't sit right with me. Whenever I bring up the long-held atheist objection of the problem of evil, I'm consistently told that human evil exists because God so values free will that he cannot take control of a person's actions and override their free decision to commit an act of evil. Thus, his folded arms during the Holocaust, for example. For Donald Trump, though, he simply had to make an exception. Unlikely. Perhaps, then, God used the wind or otherwise moved the bullets so as to protect Trump from harm. Set aside that this is merely a second-order intrusion on the free will of the shooter, considerably more problematic is the uneasy fact that God's protective grace seemingly did not extend to those unimportant enough to warrant his safekeeping. Those celebrating heavenly providence over the events of July 13th should remember that Trump's blood was not the only that was spilled. Whilst the assassin missed his target, he still became a killer that day. Megyn Kelly last month provided a useful case study of the religious fervor that some Americans direct towards their former president. Just take a look at this.
He was shot at 6:11 p.m. A couple people have sent this to me. 6:11 p.m. You read Ephesians 6:11 in the Bible. It reads as follows in part. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. 6:11, he was shot, and that's 6:11. Listen to that. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. I'm almost emotional reading it. It's just what happened to him in our country this weekend is extremely grave and extremely important, and we are all so lucky it wasn't worse than it was.
In other news, there are 3 persons in the Trinity, and this is the 3rd time that Trump has run for president. Coincidence? Yes. We're all just so lucky it wasn't worse than it was, says Megyn Kelly. It would take a utilitarian theology of incomprehensible proportions, however, to convince me, if I were a family member of Cory Comparatore, who did catch a bullet that day, that our providential Father was controlling its trajectory. How lucky his daughters should feel that the Lord, or perhaps Our Lady of Fatima again, protected Donald Trump by redirecting those bullets into their dad. Such is the unthinking theological sloppiness of those who think that God was guiding those bullets. those who insist that Trump is God's chosen president. The same Trump who, when asked to name a single Bible verse that he liked, could only muster up the following.
You mentioned the Bible. You've been talking about how it's your favorite book. And you said, I think last night in Iowa, some people are surprised that you say that. I'm wondering what one or two of your most favorite Bible verses are and why.
I wouldn't want to get into it because to me that's very personal. You know, when I talk about the Bible, it's very personal. So I don't want to get into verses. I don't want to get into.
There's no verse that means a lot to you that you think about or cite.
The Bible means a lot to me, but I don't want to get into specifics.
Even to cite a verse that you like.
No, I don't want to do that.
You're an Old Testament guy or a New Testament guy?
Probably equal. I think it's just the whole Bible is an incredible. I joke very much so. They always hold up the Art of the Deal. I say my second favorite book of all time.
At least you won't struggle to pick a favorite now. This video has been an adapted version of an essay I published more than a month ago on my Substack. If you want to read more of my work, you can do so at alexoconnor.com.